The idiocy that kids do not need dress codes in schools. Study after study shows kids with dress codes have less violence in school, their grades improve, they respect their teachers more. And likewise that the teacher has a dress code. Clothing is critical. I say it matters what you wear at church, and then Christian after Christian calls my show and said, God doesn't care what I wear. And I go, well, that's why this text is so important. God does care what you wear.
Before I went on tour the first time, I gave some thought about what I was going to wear. Now, my father was a school teacher, and he always wore a suit. And this was in the late 60s and early 70s. And I asked him one day when I was a kid, and he said it was a mark of respect for the students. And that really struck me, and because he always put on a suit. And my dad's an outdoor sort of guy. Like, he's not a suit sort of guy, fundamentally. And so when I went to Harvard to teach, I wasn't much older than my students, somewhat, but not markedly. And so one of the things I did was to dress quite formally, and that put up a distinction between me and my students, which was actually, it made things easier for them because that formality made it actually easier for them to interact with me. And so I started to pay some attention to that. And I always wore suits when I lectured at Harvard. I even toyed with wearing my robes at one point. That didn't work because that's so archaic. No one even knew what I was doing. But when I went out on tour, I decided I would go and get some really good suits. But one of the things that was so cool, I didn't expect this at all, is that about half of the people who come to my lectures dress up. The men, lots of them tell me, the young guys, they say, this is the first time I've ever, and they have three-piece suits on. They say, this is the first time I've ever bought a suit. I bought a suit for this lecture.
For the show, wow.
For the yeah, and now, the last tour I was on was 4 years after the first tour, and a lot more of the people who came were couples, and a lot of them are dressed up, so it's like a wedding. It's so fun, and to see these people, these young people, like they're dressed up, they put forward their best foot, you know, and what's so interesting about it is they're all excited about it, right? Because they don't have an opportunity anymore to put their best foot forward and are never rewarded for it. But I never envisioned at all that the decision that I made, you know, to put on these suits and to pay some attention to vestments, let's say, would have this distributed effect that's been quite pronounced and quite remarkable. And it also makes the events themselves, in a real sense, more civilized. Because everyone's there, like, they're trying to look their best, and they're trying to look their best because they're actually trying to do their best. And that means the outer clothing matches the inner orientation.